Hi guys, my name is Vitold and I'm going to tell you what I like and what I don't like about the new Moto Guzzi Stelvio 1000. It is an interesting motorcycle as on one hand it may target riders that are after some fancy stuff and new technology in motorcycles, but on the other hand it is likely chosen by a specific one type of rider. And I'll sum it up after getting through advantages and disadvantages of the bike. Now remember that we are all different and may prefer very different things, very different setups, and so on and so on. And what I have done is I have ridden all large and mid-size adventure motorcycles so that I know all the ups and downs of these machines. This gives me a certain perspective, and based on that I form my assessments and personal opinions. So let's start with the pros of this new Stelvio 1000. The first thing that I would like to mention is a comfortable seat that is rather wide, soft, and in a good shape. In my case, I like the way that it is shaped as it fits my bum nicely. So if you don't like it too hard, this may be important to you, especially if you like to ride for longer and not need to make emergency stops, emergency brakes to massage your butt after a while. And you know that I'm serious. If you look at my office chair that is fully electrically adjustable in 18 ways, check them out at powerseats.eu. There are also Rolls-Royce electric office chairs. Now the second thing about the Moto Guzzi would be a compliment to how the suspension deals specifically with larger singular bumps on the road, which is done pretty nicely and it feels like it's all under control. This is how it should be. Now the disclaimer here is that this is associated only with those singular bumps, as I'll have something a little bit more dramatic to add about the suspension later on. But let's wait for a moment for that. Number 3 is likely my favorite, and it's the electric windscreen that is providing decent wind protection and basically no buffeting. That's a big success nowadays with generally not the most competent windscreens in the whole adventure segment. But yeah, what's the most fun here is the electric adjustment, which is really nice and cool. It is a gimmick, but a very, very comfortable one that I do like personally. So good stuff there, Moto Guzzi. I would still put a taller windscreen there anyways. That's what we still are usually left with. Now the fourth pro is a more general one that revolves around the technology and equipment of this new Stelvio. Moto Guzzi put a lot of modern technology like the front radar that is responsible for letting us use adaptive cruise control, which is then supposed to keep the set distance from the vehicle in front of the bike, or they have put the rear radar that allows for using BLIS, so blind spot information system, that will warn you if there is another vehicle in your blind spot, and I also do like this system in general. None of these two was in my test bike for some reason, so I couldn't have tested them, but the general rule is like in other motorcycles and also cars today. Add an electrically adjustable windscreen and it's not bad. One more part of equipment slash technology in this case is having its own point, and that's the fifth, and it's a shaft drive. This is still quite an unpopular solution within the segment of large adventure motorcycles, or those slightly smaller in displacement bikes like the Stelvio. Especially here it's unpopular. So this drive shaft is impossible to realize that it's even there, I believe, and that's my definition of it all being done in the right way. In one other Moto Guzzi motorcycle that I happened to test ride in the past, the V85 TT, there is a drive shaft that you clearly feel the operation of when riding. The bike's movements are influenced by it when adding and then releasing throttle. None of that happens here in the Stelvio, and I'm liking it this way. I'm a fan in general. I do prefer to have a maintenance-free solution like this in comparison, for example, to a train drive. That's a pain in the bum in terms of maintenance. The sixth pro is that this bike is pretty nimble at lower speeds and hence it's rather easy to maneuver it. Useful in the city, during trips to some places where you've got to ride with care, and also when you ride with a passenger. To me it also means simply a good amount of control over the whole machine, which in turn generates the feeling of confidence when riding it. We all like that, don't we? And the last seventh pro is the sound of a V2 engine that's there. I'm also a fan of V2s, and this one here is mounted a little bit differently than in all other competitors. as it's sort of, well, it is sideways. Very original in general, but also very typical for Moto Guzzi. If you would want to know more in detail about this bike, check my full, honest review of the bike that I linked in the description of this video. So here we move to the part where I say, watch out for these. And some of them may be or may not be important to all you guys, maybe to some, but they did catch my eye and I need to share them with you so that you know what to pay potentially some extra attention to if you are considering this bike. Keep this in mind and make sure that you can live with them after obviously testing the bike yourselves. The first con is that despite the list of options consisting of some modern equipment elements, lots of basic equipment is missing or you need to pay for it, like for example for a quick shifter, for heated grips, tire pressure monitoring system or center stand. What is more, there's no keyless access option at all, or no electronically adjustable suspension, nor a height adjustable seat. So it's like they focused on the newest and hottest stuff, but ignored these that we know for years and find at least some of them super useful or even basic. A quick shifter? Come on. Then there is the second disadvantage that unveils itself in certain circumstances. I mentioned I would get back to suspension and here I am doing so. Now, when riding over a lot of smaller or larger potholes or bumps, the bike loses its mind and its suspension cannot handle all that very well. It may get super uncomfortable and feel as if the suspension is broken and there is no dumping left. This rarely happens, but it's here and I don't like it, as it should not happen that a modern suspension setup gets so overwhelmed. Now let's go to the third con from here, which is sloppy and sleepy engine, especially up to 6,000 RPM. And mind you, the cutoff happens at around 8,000 RPM, so not much further. And you have either to push it totally or just accept it and ride in a relaxing way, not really trying to have fun, at least accelerating or overtaking. To me, it's also not flexible enough despite having rather fine figures of power and torque. Anyhow, this is not a performance master, at least in my eyes. The fourth disadvantage is that terrible behavior when engaging the first gear, as the whole bike jumps forward like totally suddenly. Maybe it's possible to get used to, but it's still, well, it happens at an extreme level, and I know that it would be pissing me off very much, as it would draw my attention every single time, and I generally don't deal well with such things myself. It makes me feel that there is something wrong with the bike and it will break sooner or later, as in this particular case it is so harsh. Not a fun. Number 5 is the front brake that panics, and at some point it suddenly grabs like crazy while the rear brake does close to nothing because of bad ABS calibration. Braking power may be there in the front, but the ease of dosing certainly is not, and I call that very not sophisticated. Useless rear brake is, well, useless. Not how it should be, and it needs to be improved by Moto Guzzi as soon as possible, as it annoys and it may take some fun from daily riding away. The last sixth con is about the bad reaction to using the front brake when in a lean. As the bike becomes a fish in the water or out of water, doesn't really matter, it just gets unstable as it attempts to straighten up immediately, and that needs to be countered also very quickly. This requires extra attention, and again, it may prevent you from enjoying the ride as much, and also it may potentially be dangerous, especially for less experienced riders. If you enter the corner too fast and try to brake this way, it becomes much harder to keep the trajectory and actually turn along with the curve, and instead some may just shoot straight into the ditch or, God forbid, crash into the incoming traffic. This is an extreme situation, an extreme example. It may happen also on other motorcycles, but this Stelvio is not helping, and this is what I mean. I know it sounds scary, but at the same time it connects with the final summary of the bike, and or rather who I believe this motorcycle may be for. So what type of rider? Perhaps if you are at a stage of your life when you don't care about the speed, about brutal acceleration, maximum number of new gadgets in a bike, and also don't feel the need to make an appearance, you may want to look at brands like Moto Guzzi. It is not mainstream, it is not perfect, but it's got something different in itself. It's a bit like Maserati in cars, and it's also Italian, not as good and exciting as a Ferrari or Lamborghini, and here not as good as and exciting as, for example, Ducati. Also not as solid as some others at the same time. Still, if you want it to be Italian, if you want it to sound good, to be something else, and do some things in a decent way, while definitely not going to ride quickly and not enter corners fast, then I feel that this bike may do the job well enough. That's how I see it. And if you would like to know more about this bike, more details, more specifics, do watch my full review of it, and also let me know what you like personally or dislike in this new Stelvio in the comments, and see you there.